Hello and welcome to Monkey Tello with me, the Jonin Monkey, reviewing whatever comes to my head because of time paradox. Here we go, folks. The last two episodes of Doctor Who Series 7, beginning with
Nightmare in Silver.
If that sounded a little silly, well, let's just talk about this episode. As you may recall, in the last episode, the two kids Clara was minding have suddenly revealed that they now know she's been travelling through time, and demand that Clara takes them with her, or else they'll tell their dad. This apparently works, despite the fact that I doubt their dad would believe them for a second, especially in the age of Photoshop. And we just skip over that potential conflict and get straight to the Doctor taking Clara and the kids to what is supposedly the greatest amusement park of all time. Except by the time he gets there, it's completely abandoned and run by an eccentric and a midget, and also acts as the home for a punishment unit. Basically a group of soldiers who, well, being punished by being forced to guard an empty amusement park. Now, things seem about as normal as they can be under the circumstances, but there is a lurking threat. There are some survivors from the war between humanity and the Cybermen, and now they are coming back stronger than ever, with the intent on turning every living being into a Cyberman, and then taking over the universe. Now, the basic plot of the episode, actually a pretty good one. It's well paced, it uses a classic Doctor Who villain, and adds new twists to them. The stakes are fairly high, the characters have to go above and beyond to save themselves. The supporting cast is fairly likeable, save for the kids, but I'll deal with that later. And there are many tense scenes where it looks like the odds are firmly against our heroes. All of the elements are there that could make a really, really good episode. I can definitely say that this is not a bad episode. It does, however, have two glaring weaknesses. The first, budget. I've mentioned many times throughout these reviews that the budget for the series seems to have been greatly reduced. But the reason I've been saying that is because a lot of the stories have been smaller scale. They've been using isolated locations, or villains that can't really move, or aren't on camera for very long, presumably to lower the cost on things like extras, CGI, locations, sets, etc. However, Nightmare in Silver is a conflict on a very large scale, but on a minimal budget, and it is painfully obvious. Like I said, the setting for this is an amusement park that was supposed to be the greatest amusement park ever. I've been to playgrounds and garden centres that look less cheap. There is one scene where the kids are in an anti-grav room that's supposed to replicate the gravity on the moon. And we're supposed to believe that the kids are having a massive amount of fun. But all we're seeing visually is them floating against a backdrop. Not even a green screen. A backdrop. The kids are just standing there leaping, going and they're not even playing games in zero gravity. They're not trying to chase each other, kick a bunch of each other, you know, all the silly stuff kids do. They don't actually try and play. They just jump about in this zero gravity. And what makes it even worse is one of the kids, literally a few seconds after, going, "This is quite possibly the greatest day of my life." It's just, if you can't create the scene in the script, scrap it. Just have them staring at a museum or playing some kind of laser quest game or something. Something basic that you know you can do within the realms of your budget. Or better yet, don't add ridiculous hype to something you know full well you can't deliver. Unfortunately, this also extends to a lot of the Cyberman scenes. Now, there is one very impressive effect shot that occurs when one of them moves really, really fast, but aside from that, a lot of it is the armored extras just walking forward, and occasionally you get a laser blast, but aside from that, nothing too fancy, and the minimal effects wouldn't be such a big problem if it wasn't for the fact that the very, very, very cheap location shots make it look a lot less like a battle between humans and robots on a faraway planet, and a mock fight at a Doctor Who convention. Basically, the eyes of the script writers were bigger than the stomach, or indeed, the budget. The second weakness is tone. This is an episode that's really hard to take seriously at times. because again, we have great conflicts, but it's just so incredibly silly at times. Not helped by the fact that all of the extras in the punishment unit seem to be going for comedic value in the scene. They make this army look absolutely pathetic, and I kind of get where they're going with this. It's meant to be like, these are not the best choice, but they're all we have. But they kind of go too far the other way, so that you're wondering how they even got a uniform in the first place. All of their casual scenes focus more on their comedic aspects, and all of their death scenes, well, the reactions are always so over the top, it's hilarious. Especially since the Cybermen do some ridiculous kills, and I've no problems with off-screen death, but I'd like the build up to that death to look at least a little bit convincing. Like, two of the hilarious deaths include one moment when someone's trying to sneak up on a Cyberman because they can see their head on the other side of a wall. But it turns out the Cyberman had just put his head on a wall, and the robot grabs them from behind, and not even choking them or blinding them or anything like that, just pulling them backwards. And then a second later we cut to them dead on the ground. There's not even a cut to black or anything, so we're led to believe that this soldier was killed by being pulled backwards. Not even that hard either. But that's nowhere near as funny as the other soldier who was trying to sneak up on a Cyberman. But the Cyberman then turns his head 180 degrees to look directly behind him, and the soldier just screams, and then we cut away. And it's not even a convincing scream either, it's just so ridiculously over the top. Like, okay, there's an effect shot, you can't actually see it, but trust me when I say it's the most terrifying thing you've ever seen. Your character is unstable, so scream at the top of your voice. The entire thing is so ludicrous, so even when the army's being picked off one by one, instead of feeling anxious for how our heroes are gonna get out of this, I'm bursting out laughing and wondering how the heck it can get any more ludicrous. This also carries over into the Doctor's main conflict, and unfortunately to talk about it, I have to step briefly into
Spoiler territory!
The Doctor gets possessed by the Cybermites, so it's basically a conflict between the Doctor and an evil robotic version of himself. But the unfortunate thing is, the evil robotic version of himself acts like the Doctor normally would. And here's the thing, Matt Smith can do really sinister, really serious performances. We've seen it many times in other episodes. But that's not the direction the directors have gone for. It honestly feels like the directors have gone, hey, yeah, Matt Smith, you know how when the Doctor, he's energetic and over the top and expressive? Flamboyant? Yes, flamboyant, that's a word. We want you to do that, but evil. So basically, it feels like Matt Smith is having a contest in ham acting with himself. Which means that the conflict is both incredibly tense and incredibly silly. It often ends up like, you cannot defeat me, Arm Flail. Oh, yes I can, because I am the evil one. Flail. Aha, but I am the Doctor, and except you get the idea. It's one of the most interesting bits of the episode, but at best it can get silly, at worst it can get really tiring. And we have the child characters, and I'm sorry to say, I have not warmed to them at all, and I really hope they don't come back. They contributed nothing to this episode. Okay, that's not entirely true. One of them reveals a plot twist in the most contrived manner, but aside from that, they don't provide anything. The boy just stands around going, this is really interesting. I know about stuff like this. In fact, the teacher says I am the top of my class in blandness. And the girl is just infuriating because they decided to give her the one with attitude. So she often says stuff like, was I the only one who paid attention? It's so obvious. I really hate kids like that. So yeah, the episode isn't as good as it could have been, which is a shame because the plot flows really well, and once the conflict got going, it was pretty tense and entertaining. But the blunt truth is, it has problems and it suffers because of it. That's why, as much as I want to, I can't give it anything higher than a 6 out of 10. It's not a bad effort, but it really needed a lot of work. And here it is, folks. We now come to the series finale. The final episode of Series 7. The Name of the Doctor. Okay, here's the basic plot. There is a mad serial killer who's constantly in fear of the Whisper Men, and claims that he has a secret that will interest Vestra. you know, the dinosaur detective we talked about last episode. Vestra decides to humour him, and he leaves the cryptic message. The Doctor has a secret he will take to his grave. It has been discovered. Vastra uses some kind of special dream meditation psychic wave thing to communicate with both her colleagues, Jenny and Strax, Clara, and a long-time Doctor Who character, well, long-time New Who character at any rate, River Song. Basically a time traveller who pretty much knows everything about the Doctor and may or may not be his wife at one time. There's a lot of backstory. The episode does its best to try and explain it though. Anyways, the Whispermen arrive, kidnap Vestra and her crew, and tell Clara that she has to pass on his message to the Doctor, and that he has to figure out its meaning and come to them if he wants to see them alive again. Secrets will be revealed, and the Doctor will have to go to the one place he really doesn't want to go. And unfortunately, that's all I can say at this point, because, well, this episode is really about tying up loose ends and providing cliffhangers for the special that's going to come out in November. So you can't really give a standalone spoiler-free review. I will say that you should watch it. There are some really good ideas in here and some well-written scenes, even if it is not the greatest Doctor Who finale. And with that, I must now step into...
Spoiler territory!
Okay, first off, some people may be thinking that the title, the name of the Doctor, means that we're going to find out the Doctor's real name, which has been the one secret he has always kept close to his chest. And something that sets the character of River Song apart, because she's the only one who knows it. And you're probably thinking, this is the episode where we get to find out said name. Ha! Yeah, the title is a lie. Well, okay, maybe not a lie exactly, but deliberately misleading is what I'll say. The name of the Doctor actually refers to another important plot element that occurs right at the very end, but we'll get to that in a moment. In fact, remember that sentence I said at the beginning? The Doctor has a secret he will take to his grave. It has been discovered. The episode pulls a twist early on by saying the enemies haven't discovered the secret. What they've discovered is the Doctor's grave. In short, 90% of the episode takes place in the Doctor's grave. A very morbid concept, yes, but one that's actually pretty fascinating, actually. Tresilor is in fact a complete waste. It's the scene of the Doctor's final battle. We see a wreckage of the TARDIS in which the Doctor is apparently being buried in. It's certainly an interesting concept and makes a really dark atmosphere, which I think is what the episode was going for, to be honest. And it's then that the villains attack and, well, to be honest, they're one of the weakest elements of the episode. It's basically the conclusion of a mini-arc involving a villain called the Great Intelligence, who appeared in the Christmas episode and also appeared in The Bells of St. John, and he honestly doesn't do anything. I will say that the Whispermen themselves are pretty scary looking and show to be pretty powerful, but pretty much all the Great Intelligence does is go, "Hello, I am Hugh Grant. I am going to make monologues, and then I am going to walk into this thing. Wahahaha, my plan is complete. Bye." Basically, his plan is to find the Doctor's time stream. Basically, when Time Lords die, they don't really leave behind a body, they leave behind a mass of energy. The Doctor describes it as a tear in space. Basically a physical embodiment of all the time travelling the Doctor's done. Everything he's done throughout his life in one massive stream of energy. So the Great Intelligence steps inside it. Now the Doctor tells him that he will be torn apart and scattered across time if he does this. But the Great Intelligence says he doesn't care, he hates the Doctor for destroying so many species, and then says, "Before I die, I can turn every one of your victories into defeats, thus putting you through an endless amount of pain due to time paradoxes." So he steps in and does this, and the Doctor is then writhing around in pain, and this actually creates one pretty awesome moment all round. Because the Great Intelligence has forgotten to point out the part where the Doctor has also saved countless lives, half of the stars of the universe disappear, Vestra's assistant Jenny just spontaneously dies, and Strax starts trying to kill Vestra since he now believes he's just a standard Sontaran soldier. It's a dark scene that's well acted and something you don't normally expect of Vestra's crew, which are normally played for comedy if I'm going to be brutally honest, and it's really cool to see. And it is then we finally get the answer for what exactly Clara is. Whilst they were exploring the TARDIS, Clara suddenly starts remembering everything that happened in the journey to the centre of the TARDIS. thus undoing the reset button, although I am not giving that episode a free pass. There's nothing to suggest the captain of the salvage ship still has his memories or feels the need to make up for what he's done to his brother, and... Another time, Jonin, another time. Anyway, point is, Clara decides that she will undo what the Great Intelligence did and leap straight into the time stream. Therefore, infinite copies of Clara are now appearing and dying all over time and space, with the sole purpose of saving the Doctor at whatever point in time she is. This cures the Doctor, restores everything to normal, revives the dead members of Vastra's crew, and this is where the episode gets kinda confusing. See, to end it all off, the Doctor says goodbye to River's character, gives her a kiss, which also leads to one of the funniest lines in the episode, but I won't spoil it, and then he leaps into the time stream to find Clara. Clara is now lost and confused in the middle of his time stream, and desperately calls out for the Doctor. At which point, the Doctor guides her back using... Oh god. I can't believe I have to say this. Using the Deus Ex Machina leaf from the Rings of Az-Katan. I cannot believe they resorted to that plot device again, and if it wasn't for what happened next, I would be raging for eternity about how freaking stupid it was that this leaf is now being used as the solution to every single impossible problem Clara ever has. But yeah, what happens next is far more interesting, and this is where the name of the Doctor stuff is relevant. The Doctor finds Clara, he hugs her, and then they see a figure off in the distance, and Doctor tells Clara not to go anywhere near him. As it turns out, this guy is another incarnation of the Doctor, but this figure is one the Doctor doesn't like. The Doctor then says to Clara, "My real name isn't the secret, that's not the point. The name you take is like a promise that you have to keep for the rest of your life." He broke that promise. The figure stares at what can only be described as a burning wasteland and says, "What I did in the name of peace and sanity." To which the Doctor responds, "But not in the name of the Doctor." And then the episode ends with the figure turning towards the camera and credits appearing saying, "Introducing John Hurt as the Doctor." All I can say about this is, November can't come fast enough, because this leaves so many story possibilities. I'm excited to see which one they take. The Doctor seems scared, resentful of this man, implying that this guy has committed a terrible crime, even if it was for the greater good. So could this be the Doctor who committed the sins of the Time War? Maybe it's a future incarnation who decides to wreak havoc across time and space. Or maybe it's a past incarnation. Maybe this is the Doctor before he took the name of the Doctor. And heck, because of the animosity the Doctor has, maybe it will be like a reverse of the classic series episode The Three Doctors, where instead of teaming up with his past selves, the Doctor fights against one of his incarnations, which is an interesting idea on its own. Given that from what I've read, the next episode is going to be the 50th anniversary, maybe we'll have more than one Doctor Who incarnation, and I've started moving into wild mass guessing. Point is, this is an awesome twist that could go in a million different directions, and I'm really excited to see what Moffat will do with this. I did not see this coming, and I'll say it again, November can't come soon enough. Overall, this is an episode you really should watch. It's very engaging, answers all the questions, and delivers one epic cliffhanger. However, one weakness of this episode is very little happened plot-wise. The villains were sinister, but they barely did anything. And to be honest, things happened, but there didn't really seem to be an actual story, if that makes any sense. It just seemed to be a series of concepts and reveals. That's what this episode feels like. It's editing to watch, and I really do have to applaud both Matt Smith's acting and Vastra's actor. I don't know her name offhand, I'm sorry. Because they delivered some great performances in this episode. But otherwise, this episode doesn't really work as a standalone. Otherwise, this episode doesn't really work as a self-contained story. It's just, I don't know, it just seemed to lack some kind of connecting thread or some kind of finite ending. It just ends on a really cool cliffhanger. That's part of the reason why I was struggling with the plot summary, because when I tried to break the plot down, it didn't really seem to be that exciting. It's just a series of people standing in places and talking. So that's why I'm going to give this episode a score of 8 out of 10. It's a fun episode to watch. That's the end of this video, but join me next time on Monkey Channel when we review Series 7 in its entirety. I've been the Jonin Monkey, and until next time, cheerio.